Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome to episode 3 of Everything Possible in Dark Souls 1, and you may immediately notice some changes. Number 1, we've gotten rid of the metallic pajamas. Thank God. Number 2, we actually don't have a helm or a chest piece on, and that's because I do want to try to focus on some quick rolling. And number 3, we're no longer using the longsword. We actually have the claymore equipped, and we're going to go ahead and see how that works out for us. Mostly I switched that out because I did want to get some higher damage for the gargoyle fight. Not that the fight itself is particularly dangerous, but I want to make sure that I actually get the tail cut before our friends actually take out the gargoyles for us. Now, something else that you may have noticed is that I didn't actually show you my stats at the beginning of the episode. I do apologize for that. Rest assured that you will actually see it because I will be leveling up a couple of times during this episode, and then going forward, hopefully, I'll remember to show you them at the beginning. Heading into the Undead Parish, over here on our right, guarding an item, we have ourselves a Baroniki Knight. Now, we will see these enemies a few times, notably here in the Undead Parish. We're going to see it in Sen's Fortress and then also in the Painted World of Ariamis. This one, however, is non-respawning. Not an extremely difficult fight as long as you can focus on rolling out of his way, but you do have to be wary of his combos. Now for this kill we got a Titanite shard, which is a guaranteed drop, but he does have a small, and by small I mean 1 to 2% chance of dropping his tower shield or a piece of his steel armor that you can also buy from the Crestfallen Merchant in Sen's Fortress later on. Now with him out of the way, before we go ahead and pick up that item he was guarding, we are going to take out the 3 Balder Knights. We're also going to hope for some of their drops. Unfortunately, we don't get anything unique to them. We will get a single Titanite shard from one of them. But you have to be careful on where you're fighting them because you can see that there's a caster raining hellfire down upon us. And we're going to deal with him in just a little bit here. So there's our Titanite shard. We have one more to go. Should have been a backstab. But did you hear how quiet I was without having that stupid chainmail on? It was glorious. Running up here, going up to the altar, and on this corpse, you're going to find a Firekeeper soul. Now, a Firekeeper soul, if you decide to consume it, it will give you 5 humanity, 5 soft humanity that is, and it'll also restore your HP fully. However, if you don't consume it, and I recommend that you don't, you can actually trade it into an active living Firekeeper to upgrade your Estus Flask. And each upgrade to your Estus Flask allows you to heal more per usage. Killing this Balder Knight, we got a Rapier, not a guaranteed drop, but always a welcome one. Now this Channeler here, who just walked off the ledge, he has now buffed these hollows. Now normally we treat these hollows with a bit of disdain because they're rather just nuisances. However, when they are buffed with his trident, they become an absolutely devastating foe, especially if you find yourself stuck in the middle of them. So a tactic that I like to employ, especially if you have a weapon with a good thrust attack, like the Claymore here, is to lure them down, and you can either block or just roll backwards, get a good thrust, which can often hit more than one at a time, and then you can just rinse and repeat until they're all dead. Now normally I would take on the Channeler right here, but you can see the tip of his trident right there. He actually decided to drop down. So we're going to go up here and take care of this Balder Knight and also, well, rescue a murderer. I know it doesn't really seem like it's in character, but it's Dark Souls. And again, be wary of these guys when they're in their parry stance. Fortunately, I attacked him just quick enough so that he wasn't able to get a parry off. So that wall is breakable, but first, make sure you run all the way around. There's a barrel here at the end. Someone decided to preserve a hollow, which is good for us because we're able to get his humanity. And then break through this wall. Now, if you have the Master Key as your starting gift, or if you started as a thief, you can open this cage regardless. But because we found the mystery key, we can now go ahead and open up this brass armor wearing jerk lautrec.
Thank you. I truly appreciate.
Listen to the words he uses. Sincerely, truly appreciate.
Yes,
Yeah, you appreciate the fact that I just let you out so you can kill a firekeeper, you son of a gun. More on that later. But now that we've rescued him, we can actually use lautrec as a summon against the Bill Gargoyles, provided that we go back to the Firelink Shrine and talk to him to get his reward. Over here, we have another puking hollow. Large soul of a nameless soldier sitting on his puking corpse. I say that they're puking because they're just like hunched over a railing, and like they had a long night of partying, I guess. Now the channelers are not just casters. Be aware that once you get close, they are going to switch to melee, and that trident is actually a pretty decent weapon. Speaking of the trident, if you want it, be prepared to farm. Not here, because this guy doesn't actually respawn. But once you get to Duke's Archive, there are a few respawning channelers, and you can get their trident. It is one of the rarest drops in the entire game, with less than 1% drop rate. So have fun. By the way, if the Dark Souls game, or if the Souls games in general, had character customization that allowed you to shave your chest, would you? Because I would. Personally, I find that disgusting. But that's also probably because I don't have the ability to grow chest hair. That may be an example of too much information for you. I don't really know why I'm using the same inflection on every sentence now. Anyway, we're back at Firelink Shrine just so we can talk to lautrec. Go ahead and pop a soul. Spend them a little bit. There we go. So now we're up to soul level 10. And this is when I decide that maybe I can put some more armor on now that I put a point into endurance. Well, the answer is I can't. And I don't really learn this very quickly. But here's lautrec hanging out back in Firelink Shrine. We get a Sunlight Medal, which we can use to rank up in the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant. Now, at this point, if you want to kick him off the cliff, I don't blame you. Because you see this Firekeeper here, we're going to give her a Firekeeper Soul so we can get +1 to our Estus Flask. However, once we ring both Bells of Awakening, or after we collect a Firekeeper Soul from both the Undead Parish and Blighttown, lautrec will actually murder Anastasia, or Anastasia, however you want to say it, that Firekeeper we just spoke to. Well, we spoke at, because she actually doesn't have a tongue, so she can't speak. It's kind of weird. But if you want to avoid that happening, which does mean that you won't be able to use the Firelink Shrine bonfire for some time, then you can kill lautrec. But also keep in mind that even if you don't release him from that cell, once you meet one of those two requirements, he will still kill that Firekeeper. The only way to prevent it is to kill him. Now, an easy way to kill him is to just kick him a couple times and he'll fall right off the cliff, and you can actually get some drops from him, including the Ring of Favor and Protection. So back up here in the Undead Parish, get ourselves another Titanite Shard. We're going to deal with the hollows again. Luckily this time they are not buffed from the channeler, since the channeler is no more. We will just deal with them as fast as we can. I still use the same tactic because you can get stunned unless you have some decent poise. But you will see that you can very easily sometimes get more than one at a time. I believe I've gotten 6 before. I may be making that up. I tend to do that. Okay, almost done here. That was a pro shield move right there. Someone who has no idea what he's doing with a shield. Run straight ahead, up the stairs, and up the ladder. Now typically you wouldn't even think twice about turning around once you're at the top of this ladder because you can see another ladder dead ahead. But if you want some additional help, go ahead and walk around the edge, and this is where you can summon Knight Lautrec. And then once we climb the next ladder, then we're going to see the first summon sign of our very near and dear friend, Knight Solaire. Well, we can summon him once Phantom Knight Lautrec is summoned. There we are. Now, this is Dark Souls Bell Gargoyles Easy Mode. In other words, you can trigger the fight, stand back, and these two will absolutely decimate both of the Bell Gargoyles. The only interaction I'm really planning on having is to actually cut the first gargoyle's tail because we want to get his drop. Other than that, I could sit back and watch, I could have a cup of tea, I can maybe go throw in a quick load of laundry. That's about it. So I buffed my Claymore with Gold Pine Resin. Watch the tail swipe. Now here, he's going to do a tail pound, but I'm also able to get the Gargoyle Tail Axe while he's doing that pound. Now once he's at roughly about 50% HP, you are going to have a second Gargoyle join the fight, and he's also going to start using Flame Breath. However, the second Gargoyle is already at 50% HP, and it's very easily dealt with since typically he's going to mostly use his Flame Breath. But we have one down. I'm going to get one more hit on this Gargoyle once he flies up, thanks to the range of the Claymore. And then after he lands, I don't even have a chance to get back to him, because these two Sumbros really just do him in. For our troubles, we get the Gargoyle Helm, but we're also going to get a pair of Humanities, Twin Humanities to be exact, and a Sunlight Medal because Knight Solaire survived the fight. Any fight that Knight Solaire joins you in and he survives, you will be rewarded with a Sunlight Medal. But the Gargoyle Helm is one of 3 possible drops from that fight. You can get the Gargoyle Helm, you can get the Gargoyle Halberd, or you get the Gargoyle Shield, which actually has some very decent lightning and fire defense. And if you want to farm for those items, what you can do is go into the fight, you can kill one of them, wait till the second one drops down, and then either Homeward Bone out, or you can quit the game, which will put you right outside the Fog Gate. This will actually allow you to continue to go in and farm them until you get all the drops. So this is the first Bell of Awakening, and the only reason I left this cutscene in is because it is one of my favorites in any Souls game. And the reason is not because it's an incredibly beautiful cutscene, but it's because when you're playing online and you're in the Undead Burg, the Undead Parish, and you hear a bell ringing, that is another player actually successfully killing the Bell Gargoyles and ringing the bell. And I just think that is such a great touch and really adds to that aloneness, that distinct feeling of singularity but also solidarity that you get while playing Dark Souls. And it's very cool. Now this is Oswald of Karim, and he is a very useful merchant. Not only do we get the, well, what is it, gesture, crowd favorite, but if you aggro an NPC, or if you abandon a covenant and you make them sad, then you can come here and you can request absolution for 500 souls per your soul level, and then you can actually make that hostile NPC no longer hostile, or you can make that covenant no longer sad with you. The other thing you can do is you can buy Purging Stones. He is only one of 2 merchants in the entire game to get Purging Stones, which can cure you of curse if you so happen to be cursed. The other one is the female undead merchant, but she also sells them for more expensive. But the other thing that you can do is you can abandon covenants through him without ruining your reputation with that covenant. In other words, they won't be sad. And this is when I realized that instead of running back, I can just Homeward Bone right back to Firelink Shrine, which is where I wanted to go in the first place. Silly me. Leveling up yet again. Trying out the Gargoyle Helm. Unfortunately, I still don't have the endurance to use it. I really like the look of the Gargoyle Helm. There's something about lavish, ornate helms like the Fangor Helm or the Gargoyle Helm that really stand out to me. Maybe we'll get to wear it later. There's Petrus still standing all alone, but he won't be alone for too much longer. And then we can actually get into Rhea's questline, which is a very interesting questline in my opinion. Now we don't have any time for elevator music here, because we want to jump off right here and run around here. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to spoil it for you, I do miss this jump the first time around. Hopefully that's alright. I thought you could actually sprint off, but alas, you cannot. Now, this would be a good time to mention, and maybe you've already noticed, but I am using DS Fix to improve the graphics just slightly, nothing too crazy. I also use DS Fix to skip the beginning intros when you load the game, so it's a little bit faster. But something to keep in mind, if you unlock the game to run at 60 frames per second, which it can be done, and it does look very nice, but what can happen, and the reason I'm not doing that, is that some of the roll and jump distances are greatly affected. Well, all of the roll and jump distances are greatly affected. So for example, this jump right here can no longer be done with simply a roll. You will have to sprint and jump to it. And there are some other examples throughout the game where it can actually hinder your gameplay if you do that. There are also a few examples where you can actually fall through the floor in certain areas, so just keep in mind, yes, it looks great, but your performance in the actual game itself may suffer if you unlock it to 60 frames per second. So let's go ahead and get this item here, and this is the Undead Asylum F2 West key. We got the East key very early on in the playthrough, but this key will allow us to get that rusted iron ring we saw in episode 1. So as long as you're careful, you can make it back, you don't have to jump down. And we're going to run up these stairs, and we're going to find a bird's nest, similar to the one where we can drop items in at the Undead Asylum in order to trade things with Snuggly. Interestingly enough, and I'm sure this is more of a translation issue than anything else, you are to curl up like a ball. Not curl up like an egg like you're trying to mimic right now, but like a ball. Also, some speculation. Why does the bird come and pick you up when you curl down next to the eggs? Does it notice that you kind of resemble an egg but not enough to leave you there, so it has to pick you up and whisk you away? I don't really know of too many birds that will fly down to pick up their eggs to relocate them. Or does it just know? Or is that bird Velka? Is it? I don't know. Velka is often signified by ravens, although this one seems to be a crow. I am no lower master by any stretch. But he also drops us into another nest, so it's like he thinks we're a nest, but he's just balancing inventory, I guess. Back in the Undead Asylum, things have changed. So first we have these torch-bearing hollows, which if they catch you off guard and they can stun lock you, this can prove to be your death if you're not careful. So again, using the thrust ability when I can in order to keep them at bay. And not doing anything when I choose not to keep them very close and burning me. Now in here, do not run straight through the center unless you're ready for a boss battle. Something has happened between when we were last here and now that has caused that floor to become incredibly unstable, and we will fall and will be forced into a confrontation with the Stray Demon, which is the demon we saw through the bars in the very first few minutes of episode 1. Now we are going to deal with him, but first, let's go ahead and rest here, just in case something happens. Now, I do remove my items so I'm a little bit lighter. And I'm not sure if I should be apologizing or saying you're welcome for the look I have here. However, I feel that if you look this good in a loincloth and you don't show it off, shame on you. I mean, I am ripped. As you're falling through the floor, go ahead and start tapping your roll button. That way you don't get stunned and you don't give the Stray Demon a chance to actually get any attacks off. It'll also give you, typically, an opportunity to heal. So here we see some of his attacks. Any of those AoE attacks that he has are magic-based, so if you have a magic-based shield, you can use that to block. Otherwise, just stay behind him, and we're gonna just attack his butt or his tail as often as we can. Now this fight does take a little while because most players don't come back here right away. You will see that between the Stray Demon and the higher powered Black Knights that we're going to fight, it does seem that FromSoft maybe intended this to be a task that you take on later on, with more upgraded weapons, higher stats. But it is perfectly doable and it's not terribly difficult. It just kind of becomes a DPS race. Fortunately, I I start to have an idea. I remember his younger brother was susceptible to black fire bombs, so maybe those will do more damage than my claymore. And sure enough, they do. So 119 per firebomb. Now when he swings his club like that, you want to make sure you're behind him because that is an arc almost of 180 degrees of fire damage. And we'll go ahead and speed up the video because it does take a little time. But otherwise, you can often get him into an animation cycle where he just does this ground pound, which also has a large area of effect attack. But we can keep just running behind him, getting some attacks off. Fortunately, I remember that I have one more gold pine resin left. Now he is somewhat weak to both fire and lightning, but unfortunately at my level, it's not making a huge difference. But I sped it up because once you've seen his attacks and you learn how to dodge them, it really just becomes same old, dodge and attack, dodge and attack. I don't know how his wings actually enable him to fly though. It seems like the lift provided by those almost bony wings would not really be sufficient enough to lift his incredibly rotund body. Guess who am I to judge? And that is it for the Stray Demon. And we actually get some pretty good rewards for taking him out. We get a trio of rewards. We have a Humanity, we get a Homeward Bone, and more importantly, we get a Titanite Slab. So a Titanite Slab will allow us to upgrade to plus 15 for standard weapon upgrades, or up to plus 5 for crystal or light ascended weapons. And now I decide to put my armor back on, completely forgetting the fact that I'll be mid-rolling now. Or remembering and just not caring for some reason. But considering we only have 2 enemies left to fight in the Undead Asylum, and neither one is really going to require any dodging, I guess we can allow it. So we have another sword-wielding Black Knight. And you may notice right away that we are doing more damage than we were to the first 2 Black Knights, but his health bar seems to be going down at about the same rate. These Black Knights, and ones that we'll see even further in the Kiln of the First Flame, do have significantly higher HP. So if you're not comfortable parrying, you may not want to come back to the Undead Asylum just yet. Either wait till you have a much stronger weapon where you can just stun lock them, or practice your parrying. Now both Black Knights in this area drop a Red Titanite Chunk. Red Titanite Chunk will allow us to upgrade any weapon that's already at plus fire to either plus 6 fire, or will allow us to ascend to a Chaos type weapon, if we have the appropriate Ember. Now behind that Black Knight we picked up the Peculiar Doll, which if you want to see and do everything possible in Dark Souls, because there's an entire area called the Painted World of Ariamis, which I've already mentioned once, that you can only access if you have that Peculiar Doll. With leveling up done, we just have one more section to go and explore. Surprise, you can't wear the gargoyle helm and your hard leather set. Foolish Blue decided not to test it without the helm. If he had, he would have realized that I can't be fast rolling with that either. Now this should look familiar. This is where we picked up our heater shield and our longsword. And now we have a new friendly face, the Black Knight. Another sword-wielding variety. So we'll just go ahead and get a few parries here, take him out. Now a word on parry, especially when you have the Black Knights doing their overhead swing. One of the easiest ways that I ever found to learn to parry was to watch the hand wielding the weapon. Not their arm, not the weapon itself, but the hand. And as soon as you see that hand coming forward as part of the attack, that is when you should actually hit the parry button. As long as you focus on that, your timing should improve. Of course, practice always makes perfect. There's our second Red Titanite Chunk. We're gonna head up here, and you know what? I said we had 2 enemies left, and I was completely wrong. We actually had several more. Because unfortunately, our hero at the beginning of the game has gone fully hollow, and now he wants us dead. That's right, dear Oscar of Astora, the one who let us out of the cage at the beginning, the one who gave us the Estus Flash Shard and a couple of keys, he now wants our souls. Now you may notice that even though I'm blocking with a 100% physical resistant shield, I am still taking some damage. The reason is, the sword that Oscar is using is Astora's straight sword. Now this is a sword that we can get later on in the Valley of Drakes, but this sword has split physical and magic damage. So even though I might be blocking all of the physical attack, the magic portion is still going through, partially at least, and is still doing damage. Breaks my heart to take him out, but what are you gonna do? And you can see without blocking, he's doing a decent amount of damage. And I really should be taking advantage of his very slow and chunky rolling. But that's it for poor dear Oscar. And what we pick up, what's left of him, is his crest shield. Now this shield, if you're okay with the medium shield, has 100 physical resistance and 80 magic resistance. So, actually would have been pretty handy in the Stray Demon fight if you wanted to block some of his attacks. Now keep in mind, the Hollows, they really don't have a new trick up their sleeve just yet, so they just send the same ball careening down the hill after you. Take them out. And we're gonna head over here. Now the same 3 Hollows in this hallway are back. So don't think that the coast is clear yet, unlike me when I said there was only 2 enemies left. I love the range of that thrust. Deal with this guy. And now this hollow with the sword now has a friend. And he has the gentleman with the pike next to him. So we'll deal with them. Parry the one. Easy block. Kick. Thrust. And unnecessary parry. Because we can. Now with our new F2 West key, we can go in here, grab the item that we saw very early on in episode 1, the rusted iron ring. And this ring, some people don't get, but for Blighttown, I find it to be incredibly helpful. It is also very helpful in Sense Fortress if you decide to fight some of the Titanite demons down in the tar pits. What the rusted iron ring does is it removes or eliminates any speed penalty while you're running through any deep water or the tar pits in Sense Fortress. So, it's useful in Blighttown, it's useful when fighting the Hydra, it's useful in Sense Fortress, as I've already mentioned. It's also useful in the depths a little bit, because there is a couple of portions with deep water that will slow you down, and especially when you're fighting those slimes, you might want to actually be able to run away. So now we're going to become an egg again. This time it's much faster. And this is going to wrap up episode 3. So hopefully you guys are learning something in this series, and if you have, please leave me a comment below. If I've missed something, don't forget to leave me that below as well. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure you leave that comment. I respond to as many of them as I can. I don't think I've missed one in quite some time here. So if you want to interact with me, please do so below, or you can send me a private message. And you can just let me know how things are going. Maybe what you had for breakfast. I myself had a fruit and veggie smoothie. It had kale, blueberries, spinach, some yogurt, mango. It had pineapple. It was quite delicious, and you know what? I feel good for doing it. And here we have a long elevator ride. This would be the perfect opportunity for the Dark Souls 2 elevator theme. But I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to go ahead and let you sing it. You did, didn't you? Admit it. Admit that you just sang it. The original, non-copied Dark Souls 2 elevator theme, everyone. just realized that I basically signed off the episode like almost a minute and a half, 2 minutes ago, and I didn't actually end the episode until I got to this bonfire. So, whoops. Alright, but now we really are wrapping up, so thank you guys so much for watching, thank you guys so much for the support, and hope you're having fun. I'm having a great time. It's really been a blast kind of de-rusting my Dark Souls skills. Maybe one day we'll go ahead and de-rust Demon Souls. But anyway guys, I will catch you next time.